Hey everyone, Liz Landine here, your Essential Strategy and Action Coach with your Strategy Slay tip of the day. Today's tip is define your fear to conquer it. I'm a huge fan of Tim Ferriss and I listen to his podcast all the time and have read his book, The 4-Hour Workweek, which I highly recommend. I've gained so much great information around his strategy tips and tools and the systems and hacks and all that stuff because of him. And he's really one of my favorites, so much so that my boyfriend makes fun of me because he'll tell me for months to I should try something new, this new system or whatever he'll tell me about, and then Tim Ferriss will mention it and all of a sudden I'm all about it. It's pretty funny, but it is true. I really do respect and find Tim Ferriss just super interesting. And so one of the things that Tim talks about in the 4-Hour Workweek is something called fear setting. And I've been hearing a lot of people talking about fear lately, so this is perfect timing. And it might be a little bit longer of a video, but I think it's definitely worth taking the time to talk about. He starts the chapter on fear setting with a great quote. It says, "Named must your fear be, before banish it you can." Yes, that was said by the one and only Yoda, but it's a great one. The exercise of fear setting is great to do if you find yourself wanting to do something, maybe try something new or make a bigger change in your life or your career, but it maybe feels too risky or you're too afraid to make a change or to pursue it. And the purpose of fear setting is to help you to move past that fear, to escape the paralysis and to see things maybe a little bit more clear or a little bit more calmly. Yes, it's important to believe in the power of positivity and putting out good thoughts into the universe. I wholeheartedly believe that, firm believer, but that doesn't mean you should deny or ignore those normal, real feelings that we have of being scared that ultimately more times than not hold us back and cause us paralysis, which causes us to not act. And this is about conquering fear. And to do that, you need to define it first. And I actually did this exercise myself when I decided to leave my wonderful job of 12 years. It was very stable and it was really scary, but I decided to pursue my own business. Yes, I had a plan, but no, I didn't have everything figured out and it was scary and I had a lot of doubt if I was doing the right thing. Was I throwing away this great stable job? Was I going to end up messing everything up and have nothing at the end and basically be penniless living on the street? I conjured up all these thoughts, all these horrible outcomes in my head. But fear setting asks you to define and acknowledge your nightmare. What's the worst case scenario? And literally ask yourself, what is the worst thing that could possibly happen as a result of whatever it is that you're considering? And what you ultimately will come to the conclusion of, more than likely, is that you'll be able to get back to where you were before if things don't work out for me. And for me, I had all these thoughts, right? I knew I saved and budgeted so that if I say come May or June, I hadn't brought in any money. I didn't pick up any new clients. Nothing happened in my business. Then I'll start looking for a job. I'm qualified, I have a great resume, I have skills, I have a lot to give, and I can find another job. That's the worst case scenario. At least I tried something and followed my heart, and everything I've done for the past year that I planned and outlined for is setting me up to succeed, and I'm confident in that. And as soon as I acknowledged it, played with it a little bit, it was no longer that scary. And it allowed me the freedom and the confidence to move past that fear, that procrastination, the paralysis and inaction that ultimately will happen. And it allowed me to just make that shit happen. It was extremely powerful and helpful. And if you're feeling anxious about making that big change or decision and you've been putting it off because of the unknown, here are 6 questions. They're recommended from Tim Ferriss from the 4-Hour Workweek, so I took this right from his book. I want to make sure I make that clear and give credit. But I want to take a few minutes to just I'm just going to run through this real quick. You should take a few minutes to think about each one of these, give them some time and really think about it. But for the sake of this video and time, I'm just going to cruise right through them and I can post them later. But question number 1 is define your nightmare. The absolute absolute worst case scenario? What's the worst thing that can happen if you decide or if you did what you're considering, okay? Number 2 is what steps could you take to repair the damage or get things back on the upswing, even if temporarily. 3 is what are the outcomes or benefits, both temporary and permanent, or more probable scenarios, right? So what's more likely to happen than your worst case scenario? 4 is if you were fired from your job today, what would you do to get things under financial control? That's a great question. I really like that one. And 5 is what are you putting off out of fear? That's another good one. The last one is what is it costing you financially, emotionally, and physically to postpone this action? I'll finish with a really appropriate quote by Mark Twain. It says, "I am an old man and have known a great many troubles, but most of which never happened." Love it, and so true. So the main messages for defining your fear so you can conquer it are that life's too short to be unhappy or to let fear hold you back. Fortune favors the bold, so name and acknowledge your fear, think worst case scenario, then think solutions, and don't stand still. Make a plan and act. Hope you found today's tip helpful. Go forth and slay.